Hello. I have a tickle in my throat, which is making it hard for me to do this, but I think it's all a placebo effect because I'm really nervous. I just keep sitting here coughing instead of doing anything, but I'm just gonna start, and if I cough, because I think I sound normal. Hello, I'm Slorp, and I love TV, which means I love Severance. Like a lot of people, I've been pretty obsessed with Severance for like the past year, and it only grew during the second season, and I need to talk about it and I need to calm down for that reason. And because I am newly unemployed, I decided to just dive in and make a series about everything that I just keep thinking about. And I'm hoping it'll help me calm down a little bit. I'm really hoping to. I feel very compelled to do this just because I just have so much going on in here and I want to tell everyone, but it's too difficult to tell everyone without like taking them through the whole thing step by step, which is, I think, what I'm going to go ahead and do here. It's hard. It's been hard. I'm not even done. By the time you're watching this, I'm done, but I'm not done right now. This part's hard. I thought this part was going to be the more fun part, but it's uncomfortable. I'm going to get used to it as I go, and let's talk about it. I want to go through each episode, point out what is important what is important for now, right now, just like learning about what the show is, point out what's important for later, and what's maybe important for later, or maybe what isn't actually important for later. I just feel like I'm having the worst hair day of all time. Not really, but like it's not a good one. It's not a good hair day. It's not my best. I wish it could have been just like perfect for like the first time I'm really making a video of this kind, which this is the first time. So I wish I could have made my hair fucking perfect, and I tried to, but I have just kind of shit hair and I live in dry hot state. So I'm going to talk about each episode individually instead of just making like one big this is what all of Severance means and blah blah blah. I don't really want to jump ahead too much. For example, today we're going to be talking about episode 1, and I don't want to be like, so this part links back to links up to episode 2 here and episode 3 here. It's like, no, we'll talk about that when we get to it, is what I'm going for here. I don't know. This isn't a contract. It might be different, but that's what I'm going for, at least for now. I don't exactly want to give away like big reveals, but I wouldn't say this is going to be like a spoiler free thing. I keep getting really worried about spoilers, like, oh no, should I say this word because it's gonna like spoil the thing. I just kind of feel like everyone has free will. I just need to remind myself of that. Going forward, there's probably going to be some Severance spoilers, at the very least for the first episode. And is we're just going to go through each episode. We're going to talk about just the things that I think. Okay, so let's talk about episode 1. I think I'm going to learn that I talk too fast, that I really need to slow down, but I am nervous. I am very nervous, and I think everyone needs to just be nice to me about that. Episode 1 overall is a really good pilot for a TV show. I think a pilot is pretty hard to make. There's usually like just moments of exposition where I'm like, where I'm just a little bit like, oh, that's exposition. Yep, I got it. So in this one, those moments are, I think, really well done. I think really well written and acted. We meet almost every major character. We can't meet everyone. But I think everyone is introduced really well, just a really on-brand way that, again, isn't too, hello. As an overall plot of this episode, we get to realize that Severance takes place in like modern day North America for the most part, except there's a company that is sort of like a combination of Apple and Pfizer and Disney, I think. I guess not Disney. They don't like make entertainment, but it's like a pharmaceutical tech company. And if you work there, you have potential opportunity to become severed, which would mean that you don't remember Put a camera on me and I don't know anything. Put a camera on me and I was severed when I watched Severance. Anyway, you just might be severed, meaning that you can go to work and go home and you don't remember anything about work, and at work you don't remember anything about home. So on like first thought, obviously this is tempting. I've been a waitress for most of my job life. And oh God, I think it would have been nice to go home without a memory of anything that happened. Sometimes I think I did. Sometimes I would walk out with a pretty fair amount of money, and I would walk away like, what happened in there? It must have been bad. No, in a serious, real world, it's automatically brings up moral questions, which is what the show is about, so we don't have to get into it right now. The main character is Mark. He's a severed person. His coworkers are Irving B, Dylan G, and Helly R. So these are sort of our core four. When he is at work, his bosses are weird and the company is weird. And when he's not at work, he doesn't really give a shit. He starts Severance on Friday, which is Helly's first day. And then we get to see a weekend. I think that's just a really smart way to introduce us to it. If we started on a Monday, we would kind of just see the any part, probably get bored. It was just, a good idea both to start on a Friday as well as to start the show on Helly R's first day so we can see the procedures in this freak ass company. So while we're at work during like the first half, we're getting to know what it's like to work at Lumen. And in the second half, we get to know what Mark is like outside of work, which is a bummer. We'll get more into it, but he's definitely bummed the fuck out. We learned that his wife died, which is why he got this job being severed, because he didn't want to deal with that shit. And, I also get it. I don't have a wife. I haven't had a wife ever. So, I mean, I couldn't say, like, I get it. But, I get it. Like, yeah, he doesn't want to be sad all the time. All that being said, we can get into episode 1, which is called The Truth About Hell. The Truth About Helly. It's called Good News About Hell. The Good News About Helly. The Good News About Hell. Whatever. The first time I watched episode 1 of Severance, I was living with my parents during sort of an in-between transitional period, and I watched it on my old MacBook, and I was like, oh, I need to save this because I can't watch this on my old MacBook that is slow and it's about to rocket into the sun with how hot it is. So I literally used being able to watch Severance as part of my motivation for moving on out of there. The very first words in this episode, the very first words in the whole show are, "Who are you?"
Who are you?
It's the first thing that Helly R ever hears. And it's coming from Mark S. It's the first thing that he ever says to her, and it's the first thing that she ever hears, and it's the first thing that we ever hear watching the show. Who are you? And that's kind of what it really is about, isn't it? Who are you? Anyway, every shot in the show is really precise. We see this perfectly symmetrical above Helly shot, which is going to come back plenty of times. This is a very Peter Griffin pose. It's been said before, but I don't think it's that unfair. Helly reacts in a pretty normal way for this situation. The situation being that you wake up on a conference table, locked in a room, and you don't know who you are or where you are, and there's some thing on the table talking to you. Yeah, it's normal. But I also think it's really interesting that she pushes on the wall there. I first saw a tweet about that, her going around this room trying to find her way out, and she pushes on that wall, which is a wall. Why not push on any other walls? It could be just literally nothing, but because I'm insane, I zero in on it. Also, he's talking to her through this box, and I don't know what that is. I'm too young to know what that is. I'm only 21 years old, so I couldn't tell you literally exactly the name of it, of what that thing is though, if I'm being honest. Okay, I guess it's just called a speaker. Now I do feel dumb. Anyway, I've never seen one of those before. I'm too young. I just want to say, it doesn't fucking matter how long this takes me. This is gonna take me maybe the rest of my fucking life, and that's fine. One time I passed out in the doctor's office, and when I woke up, I had absolutely no idea who I was. And my immediate reaction was that the people who were there, who were like trying to like keep me chill and calm, were trying to kill me. So she's real. Then we get to the questions. These questions aren't like difficult to explain or surprising, but I do think that they are significant individually.
Who are you?
Who are you is obvious. They are checking to see if the severance procedure worked on a base level. Do you know who you are? We get, killer acting from Britt Lower. Helly R is played by Britt Lower, by the way. They're all very good throughout the whole series. I fear I can't point out every time that they're good because they're all going to be good. Like I'll point it out when I feel like it's really significant, but overall, just, understand. I think that they're all great. They're all so good. So the next question,
In which U.S. state or territory were you born?
where were you born, is the same as the first question. They're just checking to see if it worked on a base level. Question 3.
Please name any U.S. state or territory.
Name any U.S. territory is not the same as the first two questions because it's testing to see if they still have knowledge of other things. As they're here working in this office, their bosses don't have to explain what every single word means, like what's a pencil, what's a computer, what's what, um, what the fuck? So this is a test to make sure that they at least know something. We'll get more into this procedure later, but maybe there's another question you can jump to. Perhaps if they don't remember any US state, maybe you can go to like, okay, can you name any breakfast item? And if they know cereal, then it's like, okay, you're good to go. This makes me think that the severance procedure has failed before in the past. It had to be perfected, and part of that perfection is making sure people still know knowledge. Question 4.
What is Mr. Egan's favorite breakfast?
Doesn't make sense to us at this time. That'll make sense later. We'll get to it soon. And then there's question 5.
What is or was the color of your mother's eye?
I think that one is really the same as the first two, just did the procedure work? I think there's a little bit more to that question, which I will talk about eventually, but at this time, it's safe to assume it is just about testing their knowledge, just like the first two.
That's a perfect score.
That's a perfect score. Why was he so surprised? He's standing there like, whoa, that's crazy. Part of me thinks that this is just like supposed to be kind of funny. Just the way he delivered it, the way he's standing there is very funny to me. So part of me, most of me is just like, it's just funny. It's just a TV show. But I also wonder if people fail before, sort of going back to the Delaware US state thing. Maybe if she had missed Delaware and had to jump to a different question, it wouldn't have been a perfect score. Still passable, but not perfect. Maybe Mark didn't get a perfect score on his way in. I don't know. 10 out of 10, really good hook. I'm in instantly. Going into scene 2, we have Mark crying so much. No exposition is better than this one to tell us that Mark is sad. We get our very first and briefest shot of Mark's ID card, which has the Lumen logo on it, the Lumen droplet. I've been calling it a water droplet, but it could be anything, It could be water, it could be blood, it could be soap, Diet Coke. But yeah, it's a very like generic and pharmaceutical logo. And I think it's a really good logo for what they're doing with it. I cannot point out every time the Lugan Lomo. Should I stop? Anyway, I personally cannot go through and point out the Lumen logo every time it comes up in this show because I would need to have a kid to continue my legacy and I don't want a child. But just based on that one quick shot, we know his name is Mark Scout. We know he is capable of smiling, and we know he works at Lumen. But this whole scene is Mark in his car before going into work. He checks his watch with numbers on it because he knows he can't go in until a certain time because they have to stagger their entrances, which we will find out in this episode, so it's fine for me to talk about it. So what does this all mean? This means that Mark shows up to work early to cry. Here we also get our first shot of the Lumen building, which is just a really great shot. We also get a good juxtaposition of Mark walking here versus the way he walks when he is his innie, which we'll see a lot of, so don't worry. Mark has to check in with someone before even going into the area that he works in, just so they don't ever see each other. I also just noticed on this watch through, my pre-recording watch through, that this is the same shot as when Helly is waking up on the table. And I was like, oh my God, oh my God, just that symmetry again. And it's just really, nice as a viewer. You might not catch it the very first time, but you subconsciously catch it. We also get our first shot of this big head man in the wall. We also have the choice to have Mark go down a level before even going to the elevator that takes him down. They could have Mark just go straight. They don't have to show him going down the stairs. We could just see the shot of him going to the elevator and that would be fine. But they have him go down a level from the floor so that we can know that they are like lower than low. The severed folks are just, they're deep down there. So we already get this, not really theme, but motif, maybe? I don't know if that's the right word, but just of underground, just being underground. We get Mark going to the hallway where he will have his lockers and elevator, and we get to see this sign for the very first time that says severed access, which I'm sorry, I hate that. Are we like texting in 2006? I love this show so much, but as I'm watching while I'm taking notes, I'm just seeing these little things where I'm like, I just hate it a little bit. That also being said, if this were like a worse or lazier show, if they would have Mark like on the phone talking to his sister like, yeah, I just got done with my daily cry in the car. I'm walking downstairs now to go to the severed access. Yeah, I'm at the elevator now, so I've got to turn off my phone. Well, you know how they don't like when we have our phone on when we're in the severed area. I don't know why I'm mimicking phone. I have one. And then as Mark like turns the corner, it would be severed access, severed people only. Severance is a procedure where you don't remember things. The point is, like, this is definitely a show that, shows us everything. In the year 2025, when a lot of stuff is telling you everything, this one really is taking the time to show you. It's important. I didn't notice the Lumen water droplet logo in this episode. I will tell you the first time I noticed the Lumen water droplet logo when we get there. I just feel the need to point out how difficult it is to be alive sometimes. I think that they are going for extreme subtlety here. I don't necessarily think that you should or shouldn't automatically notice it and go, oh, that's Lumen. It is everywhere, though, I will say. It is everywhere. Mark steps into the locker room area where he changes his watch, he leaves his phone and ID, he changes his shoes. Because the show is so precise and every shot matters, they really wanted us to see Adam Scott's feet. And he also takes off his watch with the numbers and puts on a watch without numbers. I need a whole show about how much the security guard hates Mark.
See you this evening.
Yep. See you soon.
I kind of won't see you soon, but I guess that's fine. I guess that's fine for you. Oh, I just learned that I can make my shit easier to read. He gets in, he goes down to the floor, and we see the severed Zoom for the first time, which, while being cool, is also a little silly goofy to me. Not in some shots more than others, I'll point it out. When we open the elevator, we get on this clock with no numbers. Again, it's just the clocks that they use down here. They don't want Mark to have his own clock. You don't want him to know too much about time zones, maybe. This Mark walking scene is iconic. I don't really have anything to say about it. I can't even talk about it. It's just good. I enjoy shots like this. I like when people are walking and we're following them. Following in front is cool. And I love like a one shot thing, even if it's just kind of a simulated one shot. But the whole point of this part is to show us that this is a very maze-like sprawling place. We'll see, people walking through the halls so much. That's like half of the show. But they just put a lot of care into this scene. They put a lot of care into the walking parts. And then we end on Mark entering his work zone, and it's another sign we get to read that says macro data refinement. No, it says macro data refinement. Mark works in macro data refinement. He goes in, he appears to be the first one there, and he gets right to work like a good boy. So we see Mark's face cube for the first time that says Mark S. Allentown, and we see this smiling baby boy, very different from the one we saw earlier. Also, yeah, the walk, when we see Mark walking into the office, he's not exactly full of energy. He was just crying so hard. When we see any Mark walking around, he's, you know, hop to it. Also in this shot, we can see Dylan and Irving before we actually see them. So that's fun. They keep the other side of the picture from us on purpose, so we don't recognize Petey anywhere else. But that's something that they do a lot in the show. I mean, this is another really precise shot. They're slicing out the rest of the photo. But then we find out that Mark is not the first to arrive. It's Dylan.
You're breathing shitty.
I'm sorry, Dylan. I was just crying so hard that I almost threw up. So we get to know Dylan really quickly as like a bit of a sailor's mouth. He's blunt, he's very dedicated to the work. They also throw a lot of file names at you all at once. They first say Tumwater, which is something that Dylan is working on.
About 0 seconds from wrapping the Tumwater file.
And then you see Bellingham, Cairns, Coleman, Culpeper, and Drainsville. I'm pretty sure that's it, which is Mark's current file. Then we get to see the numbers. When Dylan says,
If he doesn't process today, they won't know until Tuesday of next week.
I thought about this for a while. I was like, oh my God, who is they? Hi, you want to sit here? Process today, then we won't know until Tuesday of next week. I read into this a lot. I was like, oh my God, what does Dylan know? Who's they? What does Dylan know about what they're seeing? But I don't think this means anything. Ultimately, after thinking about it, I think he's just talking about work. He's like, oh man, if they don't do it by today, Friday, I'm not going to get, any kind of perk until Tuesday at the earliest. That's really all it is. Also, we learned that they get perks, which is just exactly what it sounds like. If they do a good job, they get things. We learn more about the specifics of that in the next episode. I almost said tomorrow. I'm not doing this tomorrow. I'm taking a break. And then we meet Irving, and we get to know quickly that he is not someone who you should complain about work in front of. He says, hi, kids, what's for dinner?
Hi, kids. What's for dinner?
Irving, the rule follower. Dylan is sort of the work to live, just kind of blunt work to live. They bounce off each other. And then we have Mark, the twink comedic relief. Of course, every office needs one. You're making me very nervous. You're making me think you want me to stop talking. I can't stop talking, though. Okay, this is better for me anyway. Yes! This is a scene that throws a lot at you all at once. So it's really okay to not take it all in, because for the most part, it's going to show it all to you again. And it'll tell you everything you need to know in time. So we're just supposed to be getting an idea of what work is like. All that being said, let's look at all of it. So for the dialogue, we understand that they are, work friends. They all work together. They know each other. They complain about each other in a way that is consistent with their behavior, I think, is what I'm trying to say.
What's for dinner?
God damn it, Irv. We warned you.
Everyone knows Dylan is finishing Tumwater, so good for Dylan. We are proud of him.
And Dylan's about to wrap Tumwater today.
We know that we know that Petey was sniffling yesterday.
Petey was sniffling yesterday.
Which at this time isn't super important. We know that they know words. They have a vocabulary.
Breathe on me, I'll rip your larynx out. Endorphins.
They are funny, or at least funny enough to each other. And we know that creamer used to be a perk. We don't know how long ago, and we don't know how long Irving has been severed. And then when they're all suddenly silent when Mr. Milchick walks in, we can clearly know that that is the boss.
How many reasons did we come up with?
8.
8! How many reasons did we come up with? 8! Anyway, visuals. Dylan's cubicle has caricatures and just a lot of stuff going on. We get to see the numbers for the first time, like I said earlier, which make no sense, but we know that they know what they're doing. Dylan's desk has different stuff from different angles. The first shot of Dylan's desk, we see a bunch of erasers and 2 things pinned to the thing, the wall, the bulletin, I don't know. We get even more stuff that Dylan has on his desk. We get to see the caricatures. And we also see Petey's desk, which has decorated with some trinkets, but no caricatures. And we also see a little bit of Irving's desk. I don't think there's a direct shot of it. If there is, I'm just not very good at watching this show with my eyes open. We don't really see anything there. There's no decoration, even though we know he's, worked there the longest since he talked about the creamer in the olden days. We see more of Mark working, including a shot of bin 2 out of 5 bins. And then after that, a little thing pops up that says WOFC DR and MA. This is nonsense at this time. Again, but we're just getting an idea of this like weird cryptic work that they're doing that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Definitely makes no sense to us. And then we get our first meeting of Mr. Milchick, who is one of our bosses. And we get this really, of course it's another really symmetrical shot, but we also get Irving standing, showing us that he's Mr. Respectful. And we also got a good precise shot of the old man on a portrait through their cubicles. So we lead into the scene with Mark and Milchick walking around, and we get walking around. Like they're not going anywhere. But that gets to give us a little bit of an idea of what it's like to be around one of your bosses. We get the weird dialogue.
Last time you saw Miss Cobell, she was in her old office. Now she's in her new office. And I know a compliment about the office would just make her day.
We sort of get that would just a lot, which is sort of an unnatural way of speaking, but that's how they do it down here. But also this whole thing with her office is very funny. It does make me wonder, where was she? Why did they put her there? Did she get promoted? And I also just wonder if he's testing his obedience in general. Milchick is just testing if Mark will do what he says. Her immediately being like, oh, it's horrid, is just hilarious to me.
Nice office.
Ugh, it's horrid.
That's it. But I saw on this watch through her coming out of the same kind of wall that Helly was, or will be in the future, I guess, pushing on, which could be nothing. I don't know. I don't know anything about anything. Mark being hungover is also just hysterical.
You look awful. You look hungover.
Him looking down like, okay, and what do I do about that? Here we also get our introduction to the board of this company who communicate, I guess, through the speaker. We all learned today that this is called a speaker, and Mark's two bosses tell him that his best friend is dead. Great.
Edie is no longer with this company.
Mark obviously wants to know what happened to his work bestie over here, but Milchick makes it clear that if he even tells him, he says he would be aiding an assault on his privacy. Like, oh man, I would love to help you, but that's actually really messed up that you would even want to know that. So it's just like this very manipulative way that they do things with the innies. By the way, the ones on the inside are called innies and the people on the outside are called outies. We also get our first mention of Kier right here.
At this time, I confer upon you the freedom to serve Kier,
which is someone who we don't know yet, and that's okay because we will find out. I always found Cobell's reaction to Mark's handshake kind of hard to read. It's surprise, but reluctance as well. I don't know why she's surprised and I don't know why she's reluctant, but it's just something. Mark is so ready to pounce on this shit and to say thank you to the board and to get his handshake though. I'm just like, do you want a promotion? Like, what is your deal? Fucking bootlicker 5000. Next scene, we have Irving, Mark, and Helly. We get to see the opening scene again, but from the other side of the speaker. We learn about Carol. We learned that Carol was someone who used to work with them. Carol isn't like anything. Carol sucks. I hate Carol. I think Mark's jump to everything's fine, let's get to work is like normal for all.
Don't be sad.
I'm fine.
I know you and Petey were close.
Everything's fine.
It's also interesting in regards to this show. This show has a lot of emotion tied to it, so I do just find it interesting and notable. You'll see blue and red a lot in the show. You see this blue and red static on the TV that Milchick is putting together. There's going to be a lot of blue and red. I never noticed Irving drinking this little thing and throwing it into the Lumen recycles bin, which No, they don't. It's reminiscent to just like Starbucks or some other big company that has like their like recycling bin in their lobby when you're like, it's all going to the same place, I'm pretty sure. We get to know the procedure from Mark's end of bringing in a new person to replace Petey. I hope this is all making enough sense. I'm not just rambling about nothing. So we learned that in order to let Helly leave, she has to ask them 3 times to be let go.
She has to ask 3 times for you to let her.
While we're learning that, we get this shot of the binder that Mark is reading from, includes question 1, as well as this sticky note, which I have looked at. I don't really have a lot to say about it. I'm just going to move on from the sticky note. If there is any information on the sticky note, I don't know what it is yet, and I'll talk about it if it ever comes up. I think maybe to someone else it means something really clear, but nothing to me. I also want to point out that I just think a lazier show would have used the same shots of Helly that they take during the first scene, but they don't. They make sure to take the shots of Helly from their security cameras, like in Lumen, instead of just doing that like top-down shot or like the following her around shots, which like is a thing that shows do all the time. They just they'll take a still from one of their episodes and put it in a frame and be like, look at this picture. And I'm like, but I saw that. Who took that picture? A lazier show would have done that, but this just isn't a lazy show in the slightest. We already know what's going on here, but we hear it from Mark, and we also get to know that they're all being watched by cameras as well. And now we're catching up here. Oh my god, I'm losing my mind. They're being watched everywhere. They know they're being watched. Lumen's watching.
I'm watching.
Resident Evil 4.
Whatever. Anyway, thank God we skipped the rest of the questions. Could you imagine? We now get to know that this is Helly R. I've already been saying that, but now she knows. This whole scene is iconic. You know, I don't think I have to go like wholly through it. We get the extremely well-known Helly throwing the speaker at Mark. He tries his very best to convince her to stay by veering from the handbook, going back to the handbook, but she doesn't want to go. She asked 3 times.
So let's get you out of here.
He gets her outie here. I understand that he says out of here, but he also kind of says outie here.
Outie, outie, outie.
I don't know. We also learn that it took Mark even longer to calm down than Helly. He says he asked 19 times before he calmed down. Or it took Petey asking 19 times who he was for him to calm down. While Mark is telling Helly about his experience in the room, while he's, you know, veering from the binder, he says that his disembodied voice was his best friend. I also want to point out that Mark seems just like really worried about the idea of her leaving at this point. I personally think here, even though it's coming off like he's like, oh no, we're gonna lose someone. I think he's just bummed that he didn't get to do it very well on his first go. He wanted to be impressive and he failed at being impressive. I don't think this must have been that much worse than the average person entering experience. And then we move into our next scene, Helly's first cunty walk. So he's leading her to where she gets to go to leave, and we pass more departments with no one in it, and Mark says that they are planning an expansion. Helly is like, am I in the expansion? He's like, no, you're not in the expansion, you're a replacement. She says,
replacement for who? Why are you saying that like you hate it?
I don't know, Helly. He literally just told you that he had a best friend, and now you are a replacement. So just put 2 and 2 together. He takes her to the leaving stairwell, the stairwell that will sort of teach her what's going on, convince her to learn more. He knows he can't watch her leave. They've done this before. Maybe not him, but this probably happened with him. He's less worried that he's going to lose someone and more just bummed out that he didn't do good on his first date.
This isn't like hell or something?
No.
I don't know about that. So she knows she can't exactly just walk out, so Mark takes her to Cobell, takes her to talk to Cobell. That's the next step. This scene makes me laugh, the way Miss Cobell talks to Helly here.
Because it's a video.
Because it's a video, like, it's just funny. Miss Cobell is just kind of a riot to me, as well as being a complete freak, don't get me wrong. Oh, in this shot we also get another one of those old men behind Miss Cobell, as well as a numberless clock.
You know, my mother was an atheist. She used to say that there was good news and bad news about hell.
First of all, the episode title, The Good News About Hell. Love that. Love when that happens.
Good news is, hell is just the product of a morbid human imagination. The bad news is, whatever humans can imagine, they can usually create.
I'm kind of right there with Mark about what the hell is she talking about. Like, hell isn't real because we make it up, which is good, but it's bad also because if we can make it up, then we can make it happen. And I'm like, okay, yes, absolutely, serve, but I don't really understand what that has to do with Mark. And then she said,
A department like yours can go so good or so bad. You know, it makes a difference. The people.
and I'm like, okay, that's real too, but what does that have to do with the first thing that you said? I can't really see this as anything other than completely baffling from Mark's perspective. Like, maybe it's like the neurodivergent in me, but I'm over here like, I don't understand what the hell you're saying. And neither does Mark. Maybe she's saying that this is hell. Maybe she's saying that this is indeed hell. Hell isn't real, but we are humans and we humans made hell, and that we select the people to make hell, your department, go well. So don't fuck it up with those people. Maybe she's saying that, but maybe someone who's watching this could just help me because I think I'm missing it. I don't know. We're moving on. And we once again get to learn as Helly learns. If you get to learn as a character learns and you don't make it too ridiculous, then you can have a really good exposition. We learn that it's going to last forever and it is time for her to get to work, unfortunately. And here the horrors for Helly begin, which includes having a desk job where she has to hang out with a bunch of guys who already know each other. We also get just sort of Dylan looking at her here. At first I was like, what is this look supposed to mean? What is that? I think he's sort of giving her a you're okay look, like it's okay, which I think is very touching and sweet. Same thing with Irving here. He's obviously trying to make her feel welcome.
Hello.
And when I first saw that look from Dylan, I couldn't see his mouth, you know, so I was confused. And then we see Mark leave. He gets to go in the elevator that only goes up. And welcome back, Mark. I like that Mark kind of notices that he got a new key card when he got promoted. Did I even say that he got promoted? Mark got promoted. Mark learned when he learned that when Mark learned that PD was dead, he also got promoted and they switched. He got a new key card. Anyway, I like that Mark just a little bit notices that he has a new key card, but sort of automatically is like, they leave a thing on his car to tell him what happened to his head. They don't even want to talk to him. They'd rather leave it on his car. And also, we learn very quickly that they lie, because that's not what happened. We know that's not what happened, because we saw what happened. And we learn that Mark does not give a shit. We see Mark getting in his white car in between a red and blue car. That's fun. Colors are fun. And we have Outie Mark seeing Outie Helly for the very first time. I guess they see each other. This is sort of reaffirming that what Severance is, what they do. They don't have any idea what all that was in there. They don't know if they know each other. And Helly gets into a red car. We get our very first shot of the water tower with the Lumen logo on it. Mark heads on home and we learn that he lives in Baird Creek. And when he gets home, he immediately cracks open a cold one, except there are no boys to share his cold one with. Very sad. We learn that Mark's life is a huge bummer. We see a red fish and a blue fish in a tank. Because we are getting this weekend in our first episode, we also get to have an idea of Mark's routine. I think that the show, technically, they could have started it on a Saturday, Sunday, and then you go into work and get to know any Mark. And that's the second half of the episode. We're in the second half of the episode. First half is any, second half is Outie. But I think that the choice to have us really get to know the any version of Mark first, Mark Severance, if you will, gives us the chance to project that version of Mark onto Outie Mark. Maybe gives us an idea of how Outie Mark could be. It's the next day, and what we really know is that Mark switches to red wine in a plastic cup, and we get to meet Devin. Devin comes to pick up Mark for this weird non-food dinner gathering. I think they do a really good job establishing that they are siblings without it being too overdone. There's that mortal sin of like, hey sis, what's up, bro? That no one has ever said. That just makes my fucking skin crawl. Just more evidence that this is a great pilot, that their exposition is just really solidly done. Mark tells Devin about the little gift card he got for the cut on his head, and she says, "Where's he going to?"
Where's he going to?
Pips.
As if they would ever let Mark Severance go to a Chili's, which they should let Mark Severance go to a Chili's. We also learn that there is an anniversary approaching that is meaningful for Mark. It's his wife's death. 2 or 3 year anniversary is coming up. I just feel the need to point out Devin and Rickon are rich. This is a beautiful house in like the woods. So, I mean, good for them. We get this uneasy scene with these weird, like, pretentious people who definitely are just sort of obsessed with being the smartest person in the room. I think it's just about like the out of touchness and how Mark just really doesn't fit in with his sister's crowd of people. We don't see him with anyone at his house, and here he's like a weird one. He's trying, but you know, he's not all the way there. He's not locked in to the dinner, and how could he be? Because these people blow and Rickon is weird. It does make me laugh. It's funny.
They stagger us a little.
And then, conversely, when
And we sort of learn that maybe Mark and Rickon don't like love each other super much. I don't think Rickon is ecstatic about the way he acted at this dinner. He's like trying, but he's also still guided by his like need to be the most interesting one in the room. And I'll be interesting if Mark's interesting. He feels sort of compelled to overshare about Mark to keep his friends interested. So maybe afterwards his friends aren't like, ah, Mark, boring. We also learn that Mark is under the impression that he is in the corporate archives division, but we know that it is macro data refinement. He's under the impression that they're doing something extremely confidential. But if it was something that was just so confidential that he couldn't remember it, then why can't the any version of him also know what it is? So we know that that's kind of bullshit. I wouldn't be surprised if there's like a deeper level to this here. Someone here turns out to be like something more than they seem in the future. But like at this point, I really just take this to be as like an uncomfortable dinner telling us about how Mark doesn't really fit in. One thing is how race, I think, comes into this dinner scene. Like we know that this isn't a colorblind show, which we'll get to later. It's not, you know, completely ignored within this show. It's not insane to say that this version of America has a history of slavery. I find it to be notable that there is one black person at this table. He's the one that is talking about this as a moral quandary, as almost bringing it to everyone's attention that this is a form of slavery, or could be, if you think about it that way, but isn't quite doing it.
So in effect, that version of you is trapped there.
well,
I mean, not trapped, but
what?
I think that it's not a nothing thing, but I also don't think it's an everything thing. This is just a really lame group of people who are just pretentious. They don't take a moral standing by the end of it, because even though they all really do are like, oh, he is kind of trapped there, I don't know. In the end, they're like, I stand with you, so it's fine. We stand with Mark, even though we kind of think he's trapping a human, but we won't think about it too hard. Maybe we won't think about it too hard because our black friend has given us permission not to think about it too hard because he didn't want us to think about it too hard. A very uncomfortable Dylan for Mark, no matter how you look at it. My white discomfort coming through all of that. I'm embarrassed. We cut to Dylan making Mark... Devin. What the fuck? We cut to Devin making Mark a sandwich and apologizing for the whole thing. I can see them having a conversation about who is going to make this sandwich for Mark, and it ultimately being Devin because she's the one that brought him over. But I also am like, she's so pregnant, why are you letting her make you a sandwich? But it's because he's kind of a dick. I also see the flask he has in the pocket. He's having a rough time, but he's also kind of a dick. I can tell I'm getting so tired. I could see Adam Scott playing with his food instead of eating it like a real actor, which I love. You see that a lot, people goofing with the food. They take the time in the scene to make sure we know why he took the Severed job. We already know watching this, but that's what that scene does for us. They decide to have Mark sleep there because Devin's not going to drive him home, her fucking pregnant ass, and he's not about to drive himself home. We sort of just get this scene that is just kind of funny. Rickon is talking about letting children choose their own beds as they grow up. You don't take the bed from the child or else it'll harm the child irreparably, which I think is just sort of a funny scene to continue telling us about how Rickon is a silly, funny guy. You know, I don't think there's anything crazy going on here. Maybe. We'll talk about it later. We're coming to the end of the episode and we're just almost wrapping up. Mark goes to bed, has a hard time sleeping, gets some water. During that time, he sees a guy in the woods. Spoiler alert, it's Petey. Petey, who we know is his Innie's best friend. His Innie's best friend, Petey. I'm just wondering if what he is going through made him forget how to approach a human being. It's perfect. I literally love Severance so much. It's just kind of funny to imagine Petey rationally thinking, like, I'll stand here and look at him. Mark wakes up, tells Devin about the businessman. Devin is just sort of always wearing green or blue, and she's eating these chips out of this blue bag, which I think is a choice because I don't think I often see chips in like a blue bag. For me, chips is like yellow. Chips is like a red bag or like an orange bag. I only eat Cheetos and Doritos, I think maybe. Doritos has Cool Ranch. I don't know. I just think it's a choice. Everything is just such a choice. Nothing too bonkers and yonkers going on in that scene. And we see him cleaning his gutters. And I never ever want to own a house. Can you imagine? Can you imagine doing this? I can't. Oh, we get to see that Mark lives pretty close to work because we see him looking out and we see the water tower. Mark finishes out his weekend by going to Pips with his coupon, his very good coupon. He yaps a little bit to his neighbor again, Mrs. Selvig. We know that she can't do the trash cans and she's just kind of nosy. She's asking him who he's with, where he is. But then we get Petey. Petey, who does indeed know how to talk to a person, who knows that maybe sitting down at a table in a restaurant is a little more normal. Petey tells Mark that he is from work.
Hi, kids. What's for dinner?
That he is no longer severed. It's called reintegration. I think we like technically learned that and in the next episode that it's called reintegration, but it's okay. And that he is like going through it. He doesn't look well or good. He's here to talk to Mark about how shit is not what it seems like.
Nothing down there is what they say.
He's a little twitchy. He's a little having a rough time. We did know he was sniffling at the very least. So we learned that the possibility that severance is not permanent, even though Helly just told us it was permanent. Maybe not. We don't have any kind of confirmation at this point because this is just a guy, but I mean, that would be fun for a TV show, right? Spoiler alert, Severance isn't permanent. We learned the name Grainer as a guy that they don't like from work and who is probably watching them. And we also learn that we love Petey.
So, we're friends?
I'm your best friend. You're my very good friend.
Petey gives him the card that says happy birthday niece on it. Petey just sort of tells him, if you want to know more, meet me here at a place later. We sort of see Mark start to get paranoid. A car does pull up and he sees someone just sitting in the car. And he also kind of just told Mrs. Selvig, his neighbor, on the phone that he's at Pips. We don't, get confirmation that that is anyone. Could be nothing. And he's like, ooh, let me get out of here. Mark comes home, takes out his trash, and says hi to his neighbor, Mrs. Selvig, his nosy neighbor. We should all recognize her, I think, by her voice immediately.
Mark! Is that you?
But just in case you don't, they do show you that his neighbor is his boss. She tells him the opposite of what she told him earlier, which is that her mother is a Catholic. He's just saying some nonsense. They're being watched. There's something going on here. And holy shit, it's over, and it's directed by Ben Stiller. Guess that Ben Stiller. Yeah, I know. I couldn't really believe that for a while. I was literally like, it's a different Ben Stiller. I had a moment my first time watching, I was like, wait, no, is she severed? She's like not. It's kind of clear, I think, that she is not severed. I think it's supposed to be clear to us. I don't think it's supposed to be like a mystery. Like, she's talking about her mom in the office and we know that they don't know who their mom is, and she comes out here with two different stories with two different names. Like, she's not severed, and I think it's safe at this point to say and assume, and not even assume, to know that. Sort of an idea of some questions, some like just overarching questions. I'm just trying to sort of view it from a first time watching perspective. Like, what are the specific questions that one might have after this episode, other than like, what the fuck is going on? What is this about? What's going on? Who's that? What's that? I have, who is this big head on the wall? What's that about? How long has Irving been severed? What was going on with this creamer thing? Or, maybe he's just kind of fucking with them. Like, old man says back in my day, we had to climb up some stairs in the snow. Is there like a reason that the clocks don't have numbers on them, or is it just sort of a stylistic choice, like just this is the way things are here? Why does everything sort of have this old-fashioned feel to it? Which is something I meant to bring up earlier. Everything in the Severed area looks really old. Not like it's beat up, but has just a really retro feel to it. The speakers are old looking, the computers are retro looking. It just has a very retro vibe. And on the outside, I just don't think I've ever seen like a new car. What is Mark's head cube? Why did Cobell move offices? What was the deal with that part? Who is the board? Why don't they talk? What's the expansion that they are planning? What other departments are there? What do the departments do? What is up with these dinner party people? Why are they like this? Why does Cobell live right there? And of course, what's the visceral element?
I just don't grasp the visceral element. What does it feel like?
That is it about that episode of Severance in particular. I think that there is an easier way to do this, and I'm still figuring it out. I think I've made this harder on myself, but yeah, this is like one of the most difficult things I've ever done, and I'm also having a lot of fun doing it. Thank you for watching if you did. In my dream world, I can just lock into this and finish it like quickly, but I also need to, you know, focus on being unemployed. And you know, I might know what you're thinking. Ed, don't monetize your hobbies. You just love TV. Maybe just love TV from afar. Well, first of all, I'm not monetizing my hobbies because I'm not monetized. But you can change that. Any show of support, any like, any comment will help motivate me to continue. So please and thank you. It's the worst part. Once again, I'm Slorp. I'll have links probably in my description. Also, I stream on Twitch. I think this will get easier because this was the first episode. I think in episode 2 and beyond, it'll just be a little easier. Just leave a comment for whatever. I can't control you, but maybe if you're gonna explain the whole series in your comment, do a little spoiler alert or just something. You know, I can't stop you, but I'm kind of leading up to a thing, so haven't explained everything yet because we haven't gotten there yet. Is that it? Did I do it?